everyone, it's Veronica from Blue Star Crochet, and in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to work the Tunisian Entrelac corner to corner technique that I used for the Layla shawl, so you can go ahead and make your very own shawl. So the Tunisian Entrelac fabric is created by doing these individual little squares. Doing them join as you go, and we're going to be working in corner to corner direction. So that's the first square, that's the second row of squares, and this is the third row of squares. Okay, there are 4 different types of squares we're going to be working on. So the first one by itself, this one here, that's square type A. It's a standalone square that is not connected to any other squares when you first make it. So square A is a standalone square. Then we move on to row number 2, which is these 2 green squares. So this is type B. Type B starts with the foundation chain across the bottom. And as you work the square up, you will be connecting it down the left-hand side onto the square A. Then we move on to square number 3, which is this green one up here. That is square type C, which is worked across the top of the square below and is not connected to any other square when you make it, okay? Then in row 3, we've got square type B again. So this is square type B, which starts with the foundation chain across the bottom. And as you work the square up, it is connected on the left-hand side to the previous square. Then we move on to square number 2 of this row. And this is square type D. Square type D is worked across the top of the square below, as well as being connected up the left-hand side to the square on the left, okay? And the last square of that row is square type C again, which is worked across the top of the square below and not connected to any other square. Then to build up your fabric, all you will do is repeat the 3rd row of squares by starting with square type B, working as many squares type D as you need for the row, and the last square of the row will always be square type C, okay? Then once we work up the fabric to the desired size, we will then make these little triangles here to finish off the fabric and to neaten the edge, because otherwise we would be kind of left with these steps. So we will also make these triangles to finish off the fabric, so you've got a nice straight edge. So let's get into the tutorial and I'll show you how to work up the different types of squares and also how to make these little triangles to finish off the edge of the fabric. So for today's tutorial, I'm using a standard DK weight yarn. This is acrylic yarn, and I'm also using a 6mm crochet hook. Just a straight crochet hook will do. So let's start with, this is square type A. So I'm going to start with a slip knot, and we're going to start by chaining 7. So 1, 2, 3. There we go, chain 7. Each of these squares, as you can see, they use Tunisian simple stitch, which is what I'm about to show you. And each of the square has got 7 stitches. It's 7 stitches wide and 5 rows tall, okay? So we started with a chain of 7. I'm going to go into the 2nd chain from the hook, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and leave it on a hook. And repeat this all the way across the foundation chain. And because the first loop that stays on your hook counts as a stitch as well, you will have 7 loops on your hook. This is forward pass of Tunisian crochet. Now we're going to work the return pass. To work the return pass of square A, it's yarn over, pull through 1, and then yarn over and pull through 2, all the way across until you have one loop left on your hook, like this. So this is the first setup row for Tunisian crochet. To work the Tunisian simple stitch on the second row of the square A, I'm gonna go and insert my hook. So we've got the 2 loops on the edge, but I'm gonna go and insert my hook under the vertical bar of the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop and leave it on a hook. I'm going to repeat this all the way across until I get to the very last stitch. Okay, so at this point I've got 6 loops on a hook, and to work through the very last stitch you can turn to the side, to the edge, and you can see that there are 2 loops. So I'm going to insert my hook under both of those loops of the last stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And I've got 7 loops on a hook. To work the return pass, I'm going to yarn over, pull through 1, then yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across until I've got 1 loop left on a hook, like this. So that's 2 rows of Tunisian simple stitch for square A. All we're going to do now is work up 3 more rows of Tunisian simple stitch for square A, and that way square A will then be finished and we'll be ready to fasten off. So I'm going to go ahead and work up 2 more rows. Okay, so under the vertical bars, and when you get to the last stitch, it's under both of those loops, and the return pass is pull through 1 and then pull through 2, because we're not connecting the square on the left hand side to anything. Okay, down this side the return pass is pull through 1 and then pull through 2. So I need 1 more row. So this is the last row of Tunisian simple stitch for square A. And then I will show you how to finish off the square before we cut yarn. Here we go. So that's 5 rows of Tunisian simple stitch. And to finish off the last row, I'm going to go insert my hook under the vertical bar, yarn over, pull through and pull through. So this is a slip stitch, okay? So I'm going to slip stitch across, and as you can see I'm doing this really loosely, okay, because we will need to work into those slip stitches. Okay, we will need to pick up loops through the slip stitches, so trust me when I say do them really super loosely. And for the last stitch, again through both loops on the edge stitch. Okay, then I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to cut the yarn and pull through like this. Okay, so this is square A finished. Like I said, it's a standalone square just like this. It's not connected onto anything. And to finish off, you slip stitch across the top, so you got 6 slip stitches across the top. Let's move on to square B. So I'm going to change color, and to join yarn for square B, we're gonna, so that's how the square is finished. So to join yarn for square B, we need to join in the first stitch. So we've got edge stitches down here, as you can see. Each row has got this beautiful edge stitch that we're going to be using. So to join yarn, I'm going to insert my hook through the very first one here, and whatever method you use to join your yarn, go ahead and do so in that first stitch like this. And again, to start with square B, I'm gonna chain 7. So 1, 2, okay, so that's the square B, which starts with a foundation chain of 7. Now I'm going to insert my hook into the second chain from the hook, and the first loop always counts as a stitch. So I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, 7 loops on a hook. I picked up 1 loop through each of the chain stitches of the foundation chain. So I've got 7 loops on a hook. And now we need to be connecting this square on the left hand side to the previous square A. So for the first row, I'm going to insert my hook into the first edge stitch where we connected yarn and pull up a loop through that stitch. So this is the forward pass complete. To work the return pass, because we're connecting the square, I'm going to go yarn over and pull through 2 loops all the way across until I have 1 loop left on my hook, like this. Okay, to work the second row, it's Tunisian simple stitch all the way across. So pick up the loops under the vertical bars. Okay, so we have 7 loops at this point. And again, I'm working second row, so I'm going to find the second edge stitch, insert my hook, yarn over and pull through. So at this point we've got 8 loops on a hook, and to work the return pass is yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across. Okay, like this. So that's the 2 rows of square B finished, and I'm going to continue all the way across until I have 5 rows of square B. So I've got 7 loops on a hook, and again connected to the edge stitch, 8 loops on a hook, and the return pass is yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, all the way across until the end. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and work up row 4. If you're following along with the video, you can pause it if you need to catch up. I'm just gonna go ahead and work up square B so I can show you how to finish it off, and then we'll move on to square C. There we go. So I'm on the last row of square B. There we go. So I've got 5 rows of square B. And now to finish it off, again, we're going to slip stitch across the last row. And again, please do this really loosely, because we will be working back into those slip stitches. And trust me, if you do them too tight, you will be cursing at your project, because it'll be too tricky to work into. So there we go. That's the 6 slip stitches across the last. And now what I'm going to do is find the stitch, the last edge stitch where we connected the last row, and I'm going to slip stitch into that one. Okay, just to move my first loop along. Okay, so that's the square A and square B finished. Now we don't need to cut yarn, because we're going to move on and we're going to work on square C. So my loop is coming out of the last edge stitch, and now I'm going to turn my attention to these 6 slip stitches across the last row of square A, and I'm going to insert my hook into the first slip stitch under both loops. Okay, yarn over, pull up a loop, and I'm going to repeat this across all 6 slip stitches. And you can see how easy it is to work into them because I kept them nice and loose. And at this point, with the first loop that was already on my hook, plus the 6 slip stitches, I've got 7 loops on my hook, which is the first forward pass of square C. And again, the return pass, because I am not connecting to any other square, all I'm going to do is yarn over, pull through 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across until I have 1 loop left on a hook. Okay, and now you have set yourself up the first row of square C. The rest of square C is the same process as for the square A. You just go forward pass, and return pass is pull through 1 and then pull through 2 all the way across, like this. Okay, so that's row 2. Row 3, picking up loops under the vertical bars. And then on the last stitch, it's under both strands of the last stitch. And return pass is pull through 1 and pull through 2. There we go, so that's 3 rows. We move on to row 4. And the same return pass again. And once we work up row 5, which is the last one, we're gonna finish off the square C the same way that we have finished off square A and square B, with a row of slip stitches across the last. Okay, so I've got 5 rows, and again, very, very loosely, don't forget, I'm gonna finish off the last row with 6 slip stitches. Okay, and the last one is under both strands, and then chain 1, and we're gonna cut yarn. There we go. So we have gone over the 3 types of squares, so that's A, B, and C. What we're gonna do now, so this is where we are at the moment, okay? So we have done A, B, and C. Now we move on to row number 3, which is the pink squares. And I'm going to work up another square type B. Then we move on to square type D. And then another square type C, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and quickly work up square B off camera. And I will meet you back when we move on to square type D. So here I have square type B of row number 3, okay? And I'm just gonna finish off square B, and then we'll move on to square type D, okay? So I have 5 rows of Tunisian simple stitch, and I'm gonna go ahead and finish off the last row again by slip stitching across the last row of Tunisian simple stitches, like this. So that's 6 slip stitches across. And then I'm going to find the last edge stitch again and slip stitch into it to move the position of my loop, okay? So the first loop on a hook counts as the 1 stitch. And now I'm going to look at these slip stitches across the top of previous square B. And again, I'm going to insert my hook under both loops of those slip stitches, pick up a loop and leave it on a hook. And I'm going to repeat this all the way across those 6 slip stitches. Okay, so at this point, if I just show you like this, I'm working across the top slip stitches of previous square B, and I've got 7 loops on my hook. And now for square, so this is square type D, where I'm working across the top, and now I need to also start connecting the square on the left hand side to the previous square. Okay, so we've got 7 loops on a hook that we picked up through the slip stitches, and now I'm going to look at the edge stitches of the square to the left and find the first edge stitch and pull up a loop through that edge stitch. So I've got 8 loops on a hook, and the return pass is, because we're connecting the square onto the previous one, is yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across until I have 1 loop left on a hook. Okay, so we have picked up stitches across the slip stitches, and we're also going to be connecting to these edge stitches on the left. So this is square type D, and I'm going to work up the second row by working Tunisian simple stitch across. So I've got 7 loops on a hook, and then this is the second row, so I'm going to connect to the second edge stitch of the square to the left, and I've got 8 loops on a hook, and I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across until I have 1 loop left on a hook. Okay, and row number 3 is exactly the same, of picking up stitches under the loops, connecting to the next edge stitch, and yarn over, pull through 2 on the return pass all the way across. Okay, so this is square type D. Square type D is going to be your most common square of your Tunisian Entrelac fabric, because it's the square that's going to make up the middle of your fabric, whatever shape you're working towards, whether it's a triangle, rectangle, square. Square type D is going to be your most worked square, because it's being worked on top of a square below and being connected to the square on the left. Okay, so here we go, that's 5 rows of square D, and again, to finish off the last row, we're going to slip stitch very loosely across the last row like this. So I've got 6 slip stitches, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the last edge stitch to move the position. Now, the one thing I was going to say about these slip stitches, if you think they're going to they're too loose and they're going to look ugly, when you look at the connection here between these 2 squares, your slip stitches get pushed to the back. Okay, so don't worry that at this point they're a bit big and kind of loopy, but when you connect the squares together, because you're working through both loops of those slip stitches, they will be hidden at the back. Okay, so that was square type D. Okay, and if I just bring my triangle in, so we have worked up this square in the middle, and I'm going to move on and work up 1 square C above here, and then I'll meet you back and I'll show you how to work up these triangles to finish off your fabric. Okay, but just looking at the triangle, so we've got square A, and if you keep working, you will keep increasing by working up square B's along the bottom. All these squares along the top, or kind of working up the height, they are square type C. And any squares between the B and C will be square D, okay? So as you keep working more and more rows, you will start with B and finish with C, and all the squares between will be square type D, okay? So I'm gonna quickly move on with square C on my other sample, and I'll meet you back when we work up these little triangles to fill in those gaps. Here I am with my finished fabric, okay? So let's just pretend this is your shawl. Obviously your sample will be much larger than this, but I'm gonna show you how to work those little triangles to fill in these steps that your squares are creating, okay? So again, we're gonna work up the first triangle just here. So we're gonna start with the same technique as if you were starting square B, okay? So I'm gonna insert my hook through the very first edge stitch, and I'm gonna join yarn in that very first edge stitch, okay? So the triangles are basically half squares. So what we've got to do to work these little triangles is start decreasing, okay? Start decreasing along this edge, okay? So rather than working up a full square, we're gonna cut the squares in half. So we need to start decreasing along this edge, okay? And I will show you how to do that. So I've joined yarn in the first edge stitch, okay? And now I'm gonna chain 6, okay? So chain 6. So go foundation chain of 6. And again, start in a second chain from the hook and pick up a loop through each chain stitch. So because I chained 6 at this point, I've got 6 loops on a hook. And again, I'm gonna connect by inserting into the first edge stitch where we joined yarn and pull up a loop. So I've got 7 loops on a hook. And because we're connecting to the previous square, the return pass is yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, all the way across until you have 1 loop left on a hook. There we go. Now to start shaping a triangle, we're going to be decreasing, okay? And to decrease, we're going to work the Tunisian simple stitch 2 stitches together. To do that, I'm going to insert my hook under the vertical bar of the first stitch and under the vertical bar of the next stitch. So 2 vertical bars at the same time, yarn over and pull up a loop. And then we're just going to finish off the row as normal by picking up loops under the rest of the Tunisian simple stitch vertical bars. And again, this is row 2, so I'm going to connect to the next edge stitch. So at this point, I've got 6 loops on a hook, and return pass is yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across until you have 1 loop left on a hook, okay? To work row 3, we're again gonna start with decrease. So Tunisian simple stitch 2 together. So that's insert my hook under 2 vertical bars, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then Tunisian simple stitch under the next one and under the last one. So at this point I've got 4 loops on a hook, and to connect to the previous square, another loop through the edge stitch. So I've got 5 loops on a hook, and the return pass is yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across to end. There we go. Row number 4. Again, we're going to decrease. So 1 Tunisian simple stitch 2 together by pulling your hook under both vertical bars, pull up a loop, and then we've got 1 more Tunisian simple stitch. So I've got 3 loops on a hook and connect through the edge stitch. I've got 4 loops on a hook and then yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across. Okay, and row number 5 is just 1 Tunisian simple stitch. So insert your hook under both vertical bars and pull up a loop, and then we're going to connect to the last edge stitch. So I've got 3 loops on a hook, and to finish off I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on a hook, and here is our first little triangle. Okay, so now we're going to work the next triangle. As you can see, it's starting to take shape. So now we're going to work up the next triangle, which is going to sit between the squares. And when you look at your fabric, this triangle here will be exactly the same technique as this triangle above. And then we're going to work up 1 more up there. Okay, so to start the next triangle, we're going to move this little loop, the starting position of that loop, by slip stitching, not into the edge stitch, but we're going to turn our attention to these 6 slip stitches across the top. Okay, so I'm going to move the position and I'm going to slip stitch into the first slip stitch on top of the square. Okay, so I've already got 1 loop on the hook, so I'm going to insert my hook into the next slip stitch and pull up a loop, and repeat this across all the slip stitches. Okay, so at this point I've got 6 loops on a hook, and we need to connect to the previous square. So I'm going to find the edge stitch, okay, which is this one here, and I'm going to insert my hook into that first edge stitch and pull up a loop to connect. So I've got 7 loops on a hook, and then I'm going to work the return pass. So yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across until I've got 1 loop on the hook. Okay, row 2 of the square, again we need to start decreasing on that side of the triangle. So that's Tunisian simple stitch 2 together by inserting a hook under 2 vertical bars at the same time, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then 1 Tunisian simple stitch into each one. So I've got 5 loops on a hook, connect to the second edge stitch, 6 loops on a hook, and again return pass is pull through 2 all the way across. Okay, row number 3, again we need to decrease, so that's under 2 vertical bars and Tunisian simple stitch to end. I've got 4 loops on a hook, insert the hook into the next edge stitch, 5 loops on a hook, and then return pass is pull through 2 all the way across. Row number 4, again decrease by working under 2 vertical bars, pull up a loop. I've got 1 simple stitch, so I've got 3 loops on a hook, connect through the next edge stitch, 4 loops on a hook, and then yarn over, pull through 2. And for row 5 we've got just one Tunisian simple stitch 2 together, pull up a loop, connect to the last edge stitch, which is 3 loops on a hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And again, to move the loop, we're going to slip stitch into the first slip stitch on top of that square there. Okay, so here we go. That's the very first triangle. Now we've filled the space into this triangle, and as you can see, all you gotta do is repeat the process for this little triangle up here to fill up this gap. So again, pick up 6 stitches across the slip stitches and keep connecting across on the left hand side, and I will meet you back when this little triangle is finished, and I will show you how to do the very last triangle of the row. Here we are after finishing the next triangle in exactly the same way as we worked on this one. Now we're going to work the last triangle of the row, because obviously we want a nice triangular shape up the top as well. So I'm gonna again turn my attention to these 6 slip stitches across the top of the last square, and I'm gonna insert my hook into the first one under both loops and slip stitch into that one. So my first loop on a hook is coming out of the first slip stitch, and then I'm gonna insert into the next one and pull up a loop and repeat the process all the way across all those loops until you have 6 loops on your hook. Okay, and again, because we're not connecting on this side, the return pass is yarn over, pull through 1, and yarn over, pull through 2 until the end. Okay, and again we need to start decreasing on the right hand side, so I'm gonna work Tunisian simple stitch 2 together and pull up a loop under the next one, and for the last stitch again, insert your hook under both strands of yarn of the last stitch. So I've got 5 loops on a hook, and return pass is yarn over, pull through 1, and yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across the row. Again, row number 3 is decrease, so under both vertical bars, yarn over, pull up a loop, then I've got 1 Tunisian simple stitch, and the end one is under both loops, 4 loops on a hook, return pass, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across. Okay, row number 4 is Tunisian simple stitch 2 together, so under 2 vertical bars, yarn over, pull up a loop, and under both strands of the last stitch, so I've got 3 loops on a hook, the return pass is yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Okay, and row number 5, which is the last one, is Tunisian simple stitch 2 together, so it's under the vertical bar and under both strands of the last stitch, and pull through, pulling up a loop, which will give you 2 loops on a hook, and the return pass is yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and then just chain 1 and we can cut yarn because we're finished. So that's the last triangle of the row. So That's how you finish off the edge of the fabric for your Layla shawl, okay? So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I can't wait to see Layla shawls popping up everywhere. So thanks again for watching.